If you're watching this video, then it's probably pretty unlikely I need to convince you that Apple is an amazing company. They are a tech giant and they breed customer loyalty like no other. This video shot on an Apple product. Later, I'm gonna edit it on an Apple product. You might be watching this on an Apple product, and earlier today, I ate 2 Honeycrisp apples. That is unrelated, but in this video, I'm gonna show you how to nail your interview with Apple so that you can land a job at Apple. I'm going to give you questions they are gonna ask during your interview and teach you how to answer them. And I'm also, at the very end, I'm gonna include a list of technical questions that I personally am not able to help you answer, but I'll tell you what they are so you can do your research and answer them. Let's go. Hi everybody, my name is Ben White with Ben Talks Talent. I've got 11 years experience in recruiting, interviewing, hiring, talent acquisition, and I am passionate about using my experience to help you become the best candidate possible, land your next job, and maximize every move from a financial perspective. In today's video, we're gonna teach you how to crush your next interview with Apple specifically and land a job at Apple. But before we do that, do me a favor. If you are new here, take 3 seconds, subscribe to my channel, hit that notification bell. That way you never miss one of my videos. By doing that, you're gonna get 2 to 3 videos every week that are gonna teach you how to become the best candidate possible and become a master interviewer. Do me a favor while you're doing that, hit that like button. By hitting that like button, you tell YouTube I don't suck, and I appreciate that. Let's talk about your interview with Apple. Now, the first thing you want to do whenever you're interviewing with any company is research. Research is important. Research is a differentiator. If you go into an interview with a company and you haven't researched, the probability of success is really low. Jobs at Apple are always going to be competitive because a lot of people want to work there. So whenever you're interviewing with them, you're probably going up against 4 or 5 people who are equally qualified. So you've got to stand out. There's no way you can go in there and not give your best effort. So the fundamentals, the foundation of that is research. So what do you want to do when you research a company? Well, first and foremost, to be prepared, you want to go to their website, familiarize yourself with their products or services. What do they do? What do they make? Who do they serve? Those are things that at a basic level you want to be aware of. The next, you want to be aware of current events. So Apple does their big launches, so obviously you want to be aware of that. But in addition to that, go to Google, type in Apple in the search bar, and then go and select news. And go down and read some recent articles about Apple, what they're doing, anything that's going on with them. The next thing you want to do is you want to research the job description. So whenever you're about to apply to a job, I want you to copy and paste that job description into a Word document. Why? The reason here is that a lot of times once you apply, and other people have applied, companies will actually remove the job posting once they receive enough candidates. And if they do that, you're not going to be able to reference the job description and say, okay, I'm in alignment here, 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 and here, and here. Anytime you interview, you want to print out the job description, look at all the must-haves, the nice-to-haves. Most qualified candidates will be experienced in blank, and you want to look at that and see those qualifications and figure out how you line up and be prepared to talk to them. So that's another thing you want to do. And then the last thing you want to do in your foundation when it comes to preparedness is you want to look at company culture and values. Now with Apple, what you want to do is on their bio, like right in the bottom, like right-hand corner, they have all their values listed out, and they actually have a page for each of them. So you can click on each of their values. So what are these values? So the values that Apple has is accessibility, education, environment, inclusion and diversity, privacy, racial equity and justice, and lastly, supplier responsibility. They actually have all these values listed out, and if you click on them, it takes you to an entire web page that shows you this is what it means to them. They do a great job. They show you explicitly what they mean, what those values mean to them, and that is critical. If they take the time to spell it out like that, then it should be clear to you that these things are really important. So familiarize yourself with these values and be prepared to speak to them. If they ask you a question along the lines of, what about our values resonate with you? You should be able to answer this, and it should be a layup because you have looked at these, you have actually read, okay, here are their values, here are what they're about, and you should be able to speak to them. Let's talk about some of the specific questions I know for a fact that you will be asked when you interview at Apple. Now, the first question is a really cool question, and if you're a fan of Apple, it should be easy for you to answer. But again, with any interview question, knowing it's coming is like 50% of the battle. And that question is, what is your favorite Apple device and why? This really isn't about choosing the Apple Watch or your iPhone or your iPad. What it is about, though, is demonstrating knowledge and enthusiasm for the brand. That is what they're looking for. If I was personally answering this, I might say something along the lines of, that's actually a really difficult question because I love my iPhone, and I also love my Apple Watch. But I guess even more than that, I love the way they seamlessly work together. That is huge for me. If I had to pick one though, I'd probably go with my iPhone. I've had 3 or 4 of them throughout the years, and I just love the functionality of it. Something like that, but they need to hear the passion. They need to hear the knowledge. That is what they're looking for when you're answering this interview question. The next question that I know for a fact you are gonna get when you interview with Apple is, tell me about a time you completely failed and how did you bounce back from it? This is such an interesting one for me because I hear this question a lot. I profile different companies. I profiled Tesla, I've profiled SpaceX, I've profiled Amazon. After you're done watching this, go check out those videos because they're really neat. I really like the Tesla and SpaceX ones, so definitely check those out. But the completely, that word in there is different because most of the time it's tell me about a time if you failed, and that's it. But when Apple asks this, it's tell me about a time you completely failed and then how did you bounce back? Now, normally when you're asking this interview question, you're looking for 2 things. You're looking for authenticity, so somebody who is honest about and can be open with you. Like, here's a time I failed, and they're looking for resilience. How did you bounce back? So this is a behavioral interview question, so you want to use the STAR method. That's situation, task, action, and result, right? So what was the situation you were in? What was the task you needed to complete? What was your specific action to resolve the issue? And then what was the result? They're looking for authenticity and vulnerability. Then they're looking for your response. How did you respond? How did you demonstrate resilience? And then lastly, one of the things that I think is important, it should be something that's not so worrisome that they're like, oh my God, that was a terrible decision-making process. How did this person do that? Bonus tip here, whenever I'm given an example of a time I have failed or I did something wrong, it is beneficial to do that like earlier in your career. You wanna do that as something you did 5, 6, 7 years ago, not 5, 6, 7 months ago. The next question is, tell me about a time you disagreed with your manager. How did you handle it and what was the outcome? This again is a behavioral interview question. Anytime you hear the words, tell me about a time, or can you give me an example when, that's a behavioral interview question, and it means, once again, STAR method, situation, task, action, result. So that's what you're thinking about here. This question specifically, they want to know about your professionalism, your ability to manage up. That's important here. You want to show respect to your manager, so lay out a scenario in which maybe your manager didn't have visibility to something, and they told you to do something, and you realized, they don't see what I see. There's a better way to do this. So you went to them with data, with information, you explained the situation, and ultimately they sided with you and said, thank you, Ben, you were right, let's do it your way. That's the kind of situation you want to be laying out when you answer this interview question, and if you can do that, then you'll succeed in answering it. I want to talk about a few more behavioral situational questions because Apple's pretty heavy on them. The next one is, what is something you have done in this life that you were particularly proud of and why? This is interesting because I hear the question, what is your most significant career achievement? A lot. It is a very common interview question. I ask the interview question, and whenever you're doing that, you're looking for a few things. You want something significant, and you want them to be able to answer multiple follow-up questions about it. Now, they said something you've done in your life that you're particularly proud of, so this to me opens it up to talking about getting your degree, maybe getting your master's degree, maybe something you did that you're really proud of, running a marathon. The fact that they said in your life gives you flexibility. If it was me though, I might try to find a way to say something that I did in my career that was impactful for a lot of ways, but was also something I'm passionate about, right? If it's a problem you solve that you're passionate about, that was significant, that shows bits and pieces of who you are as a person, but who you are also professionally, that's absolutely nailing this question. The one key here though, is you need to be able to answer follow-up questions. So a lot of companies will ask this, and you'll give an example of a time you solved a big problem at work, and they'll go, okay, great. How long did it take for you to solve this? Okay, how many people were involved? What did you specifically do and what did the team do? Ben, what was the most significant learning moment in here? Or what was the turning point in which you had an aha moment, made a change that resulted in the success of this product? Ben, what were the cycle times? That's like a specific technical follow-up. I've heard SpaceX actually ask that to inquire further when someone's giving what was your most significant career achievement. But you get the drift here, right? Anybody who's going to say, this is the most significant thing I've done in my life or career, should be able to answer multiple follow-up questions about it. This is no different. You need to be prepared to do that. And if you can do that, you'll pass this question. The next question is, how have you dealt in the past with a difficult customer? Again, behavioral, so you want to take the STAR approach. But the key here is showing your willingness to do so, right? Because if they're asking you, tell me about a time that you've worked with a difficult customer, you have to let them know that you're okay doing this because it's probably something you're going to have to do again. So maybe start off by answering this question and go, that's something I've done frequently, and I enjoy this because it gives me an opportunity to represent my company and solve a problem for a customer. Most customers who have some sort of customer complaint just want their issue resolved. They're happy with the company, otherwise they would just leave and choose another service. But because they're choosing to voice a complaint, it means they're a customer we can save. That's a powerful foundation for answering this question. Now, beyond there, you have to demonstrate patience and your ability to resolve the issue. If you can do those things, you will answer this interview question with flying colors, so do that. Now, this next one is a question I love. I think it's super cool. This is, again, customer focused. So if you're in a customer-facing role at all, you might get this question, but I think it's so neat. I've never heard this question asked anywhere, but Apple asks it. And it goes, if you had to prioritize between fixing a customer's problem or creating a great customer experience, which would you choose? Which do you think is more important and why? Wow. Ideally, you can do both of these things, right? You can fix a problem, but you can also improve experience. Here's how I see it. I've done a fair amount of research on Apple, and Apple really prioritized customer experience. They want your experience with any of their products to be seamless. Seamlessly, information goes from your Apple Watch to your phone about fitness, about your health, about usage. So for me, this would be my response. I would tell them that for me, I think more important is customer experience because you can retain a customer when you don't solve their problem, but they have a great experience with you. So that's what I would do. Now, in a perfect world, you do both of these things, but the reality is you can fix someone's problem and they could still be really miserable with the experience they had with your company and go elsewhere. So what's more powerful? Customer experience. To me, customer experience is the ultimate differentiator, and it really is in line with Apple's values. So that is how I would answer that interview question, and I think if you say that, you will absolutely pass. The next question that Apple asks, and this is a common interview question, so it shouldn't be too hard, but it's tell me about a time that you went above and beyond for a customer. Again, behavioral interview question, so you have to use a STAR method. But here's the key. A lot of people get this question wrong because instead of giving one succinct answer, they just start rambling on about a bunch of different times they've helped customers. Recruiters hate this, hiring managers hate this, HR people hate this. If they ask you for a specific example and you give 8 so-so examples, you are failing this interview question. So you have to make sure you do this. The other thing people do wrong when they answer this question is the answer isn't above and beyond. They give you an answer that's like, well, I thought that was your job. Wouldn't that be what you're doing? Like for me, I'm in recruitment, and if somebody asked me, Ben, give me a time where you went above and beyond for a customer, and I was like, well, one time I had a search I was on. It was really difficult, but I ended up finding their person. In the back of their mind, they're gonna go, well, isn't that your job, Ben? Where is the above and beyond here? So you have to keep that in mind. When someone asks you to demonstrate a time you went above and beyond, actually give them above and beyond. If you just give them your job, that is not doing it. So remember, one succinct answer, show that you are comfortable doing it, be detailed, show resolution, be specific with what you did, and make sure it's actually above and beyond. I worked into the night. I worked over the weekend. I went and talked to somebody in another department and worked with them to find resolution. Whatever it is, make sure it's actually above and beyond. Now here I want to talk about a leadership question. In case you are interviewing with Apple for a role where you will have people responsibility, this is one of the questions I found in all my research multiple times. And it's tell me about a time you dealt with a situation where you had an employee give you pushback on a suggestion, and how do you respond? In a lot of ways, this is like the reverse of the question we talked about earlier where you had to elevate something to your manager. Well, this is like, well, now you're the manager and they're bringing something to you. So here's what I would say here. This is a great leadership question. It's an awesome opportunity to show humility as a manager. So be the type of manager who hears them out, listens, gathers all the information, and solves conflict in a way where, you know, everybody's happy, right? You listen to them, you understood the information, you took their perspective, and you found resolution that was great for all parties involved. That's really what it is. Again, this is a behavioral interview question. So situation, task, action, result. That's what you want to be doing, STAR method. Now I want to talk about two company-specific roles, or questions rather. These are things that they want to ask, and anybody could be asked this. The first one is, why do you want to work for Apple? And this is a basic question where if you're interviewing, every interview you do for the rest of your life, be able to answer this question for the company. Now, when it comes to Apple, how do you answer this? The best answers always involve the combination of three things. One, your admiration for the company you're interviewing, right? That's foundation piece number one. Number two, value alignment. Why are you a good culture fit? Why do you share values? That's number two. And then number three, why the role you're specifically applying to is perfect for where you want to be in your career today. This is where you want to go. This is where you're taking your career. You're passionate about the role and the responsibilities. If you can hit on all three of these things in your answer, you're absolutely going to crush this interview question. This next one's really cool. It's one of those ones where if you've researched it, it's going to be so easy to answer. But if you haven't researched it, you're going to have no idea. And so here's the question. Apple changed its name from Apple Computers Incorporated to Apple Inc. Do you know why the change was made? So here's why it was officially made. So during his keynote speech at the Macworld Expo on January 9th, 2007, Steve Jobs announced that Apple Computer Inc. would thereafter be known as Apple Inc. because the company has shifted its emphasis from computers to consumer electronics. That's the answer. Don't recite that word for word like I just did. Find a way to make it your own. Don't be overly rehearsed. But basically, you could say, I believe there was an event in which Steve Jobs announced they were doing that because of the shift from just computers to more consumer electronics like the Apple Watch or the iPhone. That's the answer. That's how you answer it. Honestly, this question is so easy if you have access to this information. But if you never heard that story, how would you answer it? I don't know. So now I want to get into a couple just regular questions that I don't think are company related, but you could get anywhere. And I'm going to be honest, I don't love them. But I know they ask them at Apple, so I want you to be prepared to answer them. The first one is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I hate this interview question. And here's why. Statistically, it's more likely that neither of you are at Apple in 5 years because the average tenure of an employee in America, and probably worldwide, but in America for sure, it's 3.1 years. So if you take this job in 2 weeks, they offer it to you today, you accept, you start in 2 weeks, 3.1 years, you're probably working somewhere else. Maybe you're at SpaceX or Tesla or Netflix or wherever. But the odds are you're not going to be there. That being said, you can't say that as an interview response. That is a terrible interview response. Don't say that. Here's what I would do. People make the mistake of talking about the next role, and then it leaves people thinking, well, are they actually interested in this role? Which is stupid because they asked you, you answered, and now they're second guessing your motivation. So here's what you say. Start off with the foundation of, that's a really great question. Right now in my career, I'm really focused on moving into a role like this because I want to expand my ability in ABC. However, I see myself learning and growing, and in 5 years, I'd like to be making the type of impact blank. This is nice because it doesn't say a specific role. You can say a specific role. Make it one that's reasonable to be there in 5 years. Don't make it one that's 3 or 4 steps ahead of where this next job would be. Maybe the next step up, that's fine. But I like talking about your current role, your current interest, you being good here, and then the type of impact you're able to make in the world in 5 years. This specifically fits well with Apple and their mission, in my opinion, because if you look at the values, there's a lot of alignment there. That's how you answer it. The next question, I hate it. I actually can't believe Apple asked this, but I found it on 2 different sites, and it's, what's your favorite food or ice cream? This might be one of those questions that a company asks just to get you loose and get you talking. I don't know what it has to do with working at Apple or being an engineer or whatever they want you to do, but just be prepared. Don't be thrown off by it. My favorite ice cream is coffee. Haagen-Dazs is perfection. Feel free to use that. Now, the last question I'm going to teach you how to answer before we move into the technical questions, where I will offer you no help whatsoever, is if you accept a job at Apple, what will you miss most about where you currently work? Here's a key. Don't say something you won't be able to get at Apple, right? So sometimes people say, I'm really gonna miss this specific thing we do at my current company. And deep down in the recruiter's head, part of them goes, oh man, we can't offer this at Apple. maybe this person isn't gonna wanna take this job. Don't do that. Instead, say something like, you know what, honestly, I'm gonna miss working with my team. I've got a great team. I'm a type of person who's really team oriented, and we've gone through a lot of things over the years, and I am gonna miss working with some of them. However, I'm really looking forward to the team that I'll get to work with at Apple, because I know the value alignment of the people you hire is going to be really spot on with me personally, and I know that I can look forward to that same type of camaraderie at Apple. There you go, easy, done, say that. So real quick, I feel compelled to say, I am not a technical person. I have a bachelor's degree in business and I have an MBA, but I have gone to school for nothing technical, so I am not going to help you answer any of these questions. I'm going to tell you what they are so you can do your own research, and I'll actually leave them all in the description box so you can go down there, copy and paste it, go find the answers, and then nail it in your interview with Apple. So the first question is, explain what a modem and a router are to an 8-year-old. I'm going to give you a little, I literally said I'm not going to help you. I'm going to help you a little bit. This is just about making sure you can explain concepts that are difficult to somebody who doesn't have your education and background. So make it simple, make it easy to follow. The next question, explain what RAM is to a 5-year-old. Kind of the same deal here. Make it easy to follow. One of the things that's funny is when I talk to candidates from the military, sometimes they use all these acronyms, and I end up saying, hey, could you start over? I don't understand what that acronym you said is. And they go, okay, yeah, let me do that. So just make sure what you're saying is understandable to somebody who doesn't have your technical background. That's the key there. The next question, how would you derive a confidence interval, from a series of coin tosses? I could wager a guess here, not gonna do it, but I bet you can. That's the question. The next one's kind of technical, but not, but I'll just place it here and you can figure it out. If a person called for tech support, but had a dinosaur product, how would you handle it? I'm assuming they don't mean an actual product made for dinosaurs, but an old one, but you're probably the tech expert, so I'll leave that up to you. Here's the next question. How would you check to see if the left and right were mirror images of a binary tree? Lastly, how would you test a toaster? Me personally, I'd put bread in it while it was toasting. I would smash avocado. Then, when it pops, I would put some pesto veganese on the bread. Then I would mash the avocado. Then I would put some Bangkok blend seasoning from Penzi Spices on it, and I'd make excellent avocado toast. They're probably looking for something different. Personally, though, that's what I'd do. Well, there you have it. Those are all the questions. Here's the thing. All of you out there are probably gonna nail these technical questions, so it's really important to nail the ones that aren't technical in nature, because that's where you're gonna differentiate yourself. If you're watching this, it probably means you have an interview with Apple, which probably means your qualifications are amazing. You're gonna crush the technical portion. Make sure you don't skimp on the first part of this video, because that is where you will differentiate yourself, and that is how you're gonna land your job at Apple. Good luck in the interview. You've got this.